All right, welcome back everyone to this very special edition from the SVK Network. We are live here at the Restaurants Canada show. We have Vince here from Circana joining us, and he's here to talk about the real data, the real really what consumers are actually thinking, what they're saying, what they're doing, all based around the restaurant industry. Welcome to the show, Vince.
Thanks so much for having me, Chris.
Yeah, and you guys recently went through a name change. If maybe you wanted to give us the new name and the reasoning behind it. So before we get started.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much. I appreciate the forum. So Circana is the new brand identity. Came about with the merger of the NPD Group, where I've been for most of the last 15 years. And we merged with IRI, Information Resources, Inc., brought together 90 years of consumer research history under one umbrella called Circana. So we just launched the new brand about a month ago, and we're bringing the most complete view of consumer purchase behaviors to the market, and we're all very excited about it and what the future has to provide for us.
Very cool, very cool. This is the show where you actually get to call me on all the things that I've been saying about the industry, whether or not it's true or not, because you guys have the facts.
There you go.
Yeah, well, I think one of the topics that would be on most people's mind right now is around there's lots of talk around AI technologies. So maybe coming straight from someone who would know a lot about this, how do you envision the integration of advanced AI technologies like ChatGPT-4 kind of shaping the future of food service, particularly when it comes to enhancing the customer experience and optimizing those?
Sure, of course. Well, I think what we're going to see with something as new as AI and ChatGPT is you're probably going to get some restaurants and maybe some smaller brands who are going to jump on board early, and they're really going to capitalize on that novelty impact. So they'll use it for things like social media posts, interacting maybe with some sort of a chatbot, AI-driven chatbot with their guests. And I suspect if it hasn't already hit the mark, we probably very soon we're going to see AI-inspired or AI-created menus. And not just the items on the menu, but the actual menus, because I understand it does that as well. So I haven't tried it out yet, and I do love to cook, so maybe I will have to try that. So I think that's what you're going to see in the early days.
Cool.
And then as the technology evolves and people get used to what it can do, I think you're probably going to see things like virtual ordering. So imagine going to a table in a full-service restaurant or the kiosk in a quick-service restaurant, and instead of keying through the individual items, you'll just be talking to an AI-enabled bot, and it'll ask you, so tell me what you'd like today. Oh, can we make you some recommendations? Oh, maybe you'd like to add this to your order. And that sort of interaction. And I think that'll be very popular, especially among some of the younger consumers.
Right. Yeah. And I love the one thing that I love saying about it. So I'm coming from the mobile ordering, the digital guest experience space. And one thing I like to say about a really good mobile ordering experience or menu experience is your best trained employee that never misses a special, never misses an upselling opportunity. It has all that information available. And I guess maybe, as you just said, a couple companies are going to jump on this right now and benefit from it. So you're saying that now is the time. There's enough value there to jump onto this trend before waiting for some of these well-known brands to start using. You're saying we're ready to go?
I think it'll be some of the smaller brands will probably jump on first, because the bigger brands, there's a lot of momentum going on there, and it's very difficult for them to make a big change right up front.
Right.
Something like that. So the little folks, the smaller ones who are a little bit more maybe more cutting edge.
Well, mobile as well. They can change directions.
Well, exactly. And the other thing why this is cutting edge and leading edge is that one of the things I talk about all the time is Gen Z. Yeah. So these are the folks who are turning 24, 25 this year, and going back about 15 years. They're obviously the people who were born with a cell phone in their hand, and they're all about the digital engagement.
Yeah.
Now, digital ordering is huge in food service. It's growing at about 20% a year for the last 5 years. It's been the biggest trend for a long time. So this is really just a piece of that. I think about, for example, when we were working in an office, the gang from the office would walk down the street to the local QSR restaurant, and anybody over the age of 35 would walk up to the counter to order. Anybody under the age of 35 would go to the kiosk. So this will be that kind of engagement. That generation feels more comfortable or enjoys or appreciates working with digital technology more so maybe than older generations. So that's why this really is the leading edge, I think, of AI and any sort of digital customer engagement.
Right, and you kind of nailed an interesting point about the generational. So as a millennial, I grew up, in the era before the internet happened, so
Sure.
And I feel like when you're in that, Gen Z and up, like you're like, why are restaurants doing this? Why do I have to like go to this thing, or why do I have to use this system? Why can't I just do everything on my phone where the rest of my life lives, right? And so they didn't live before that time. So it is more time than ever to address that market, because right now they're the ones coming into the spending power, right?
Exactly.
Very cool.
So I heard another AI example, if you'd like me to share with you.
Absolutely.
So a colleague shared with me that their son was on a job interview with a major QSR brand,
yeah.
and their initial screening interview was done through an AI bot.
Nice.
There was no human on the other end of the line. And I thought, well, this is not a way to engage, to get younger people engaging with your brand, engaging with the industry, which is really short for employees right now. But then it occurred to me again, like I just said, the 18 to 24-year-old, they'll appreciate that. They'll accept that, and they'll move on with that.
I mean, it's like e-learning, right? Like that's what they've been doing.
Exactly. So I think that'll be great. And then as the technology evolves, you're going to get the back of the house AI, which will help operators in figuring out what to order, how to plan their tables, how to do their scheduling, how to save money, and just how to plan their business all the better.
And I think that's an important piece about AI, where it's like it's like anything. It's any good technology is it enables you to do more with less. And most people sometimes think it's like waving a magic wand, but especially when it comes to AI, it's like a very intelligent like autocomplete engine. It's also something that can help. Imagine you manually took hours to do some research to find all these food trends. Well, this tool can do it in an instant. So understanding that you still need to have that good plan, but in the looking at this interview process, it's like that is what they're used to, and it's all, at least in the initial screening, it's all very scripted, so the company can be efficient. Then you said, did he enjoy the experience going through that pre-scripted thing?
I didn't get that feedback. I'm not sure.
Cool.
I'm not sure. I would enjoy it, but again, I'm not 24 years old anymore.
Yeah. So I think, and we look at globalization is obviously happening. I mean, it's been happening for a while now, but especially when you can move so quickly to gather this information. What do you think food service should pay attention to when it comes to striking a balance between like adopting local tastes while still being able to local tastes, but also having like a global brand and identity?
That's interesting, because one of the first things I think about with globalization is immigration.
Yep.
And of course, immigration is a huge part of the population growth in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the folks coming to Canada are coming from parts of the world that eat differently. They eat different foods. They have different food and menu items in their diet typically, and that's influencing what the average consumer looks like, how they consume, how they interact with brands. So I think these globalized brands, these big brands, as you say, would be wise to start looking offshore for some of their next great menu ideas, because those customers who used to be offshore interacting with their brand are now living in Canada, and they're looking for the foods that they're familiar with and have to some extent grown up with, or maybe are inclined to eat at home. So there is room for the Mediterranean cuisine, the South Asian cuisine, I've gotten onto Ethiopian cuisine lately.
Yeah.
It's just something different and new and exciting. And again, I'm going to go back to my Gen Z discussion, the most ethnically diverse cohort in the Canadian food service population and in total population. So they're going to be looking for and craving and demanding those global flavors and those global tastes. So all the big brands are going to have to step up, or they're going to lose out that piece of the market to the smaller operators, again, who are more nimble, able to adjust and identify with those consumers with the flavors that they like.
Right. I mean, just think about before the pandemic when we had like the cronut craze, or these these different types of fusions coming together. But it was like you had to hop on this trend like that week. Otherwise, you're going to miss it. And I feel like as you're talking like that, those trends are going to be coming up more and more and more as we kind of move back into getting outside more and all that.
Yes.
So you have to move very quickly. And I grew up in a small town, so this idea of globalization for me was literally moving from like a small town that had hundreds of people to like a couple thousand, to then moving to like a big city like Ottawa, big city.
Yes.
And then it was like I could walk down the street and have a shawarma and a pad thai and a sushi, and those are things I never really ate or might have had once in my life. But you talk about now with the trends, and especially with the younger generation, they grew up with this. This is normal for them. So
exactly, and everybody's exposed to it on traditional media with things like the Food Network, but of course, social media.
Yep. And on the SVK network, of course. So what do you think? So maybe some advice as far as like, so knowing that these trends, there's more information available, and these trends are moving faster than ever. What should restaurateurs do to tap into this? I mean, obviously working with a company like Circana would be a great idea, but what would you say like larger restaurants? I'm sure do this, but say you're talking more localized restaurants or smaller chains, like how would they interact with you guys to get some of this information?
I think that the trick is with small companies, big companies, is just to understand who your consumer is, who is your customer.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, you can't be all things to all people. So you've got to figure out, are you going to be that traditional restaurant and serve your core items, and that's what you're going to hang your hat on and just do it better than anybody else? Or maybe you're going to go down that exploratory route and serve a different global flavor every month, whatever the case may be. Or if you are an ethnic restaurant or a restaurant that serves some sort of global flavor, then make sure you're doing it better than anybody else. There is a market for all of those things within different demographics, but again, you've got to understand who is your consumer based on an age cohort, income cohort, where do they live, where do they eat, what are the brands, and how are they interacting with restaurants right now.
And I think you run into these situations every day where it's like you have a multi-generational restaurant, and to your point, you used to know your customers because your dining room was your dining room, and you would know people by name, and you would know where they're from and everything about them now. But we talk about this all the time on the network, right? As your dining room is now extended past your front door, as you're online now, and you don't always know where your consumers are coming from. You don't always know the people that are interacting with your restaurant. Some of them have never even been there, but they love your food and they talk about you all the time. But you don't know them because if you're not looking at this type of data. Right. So I think it's something that the restaurant industry, a lot, especially the local guys, need to catch up on because it's only happened in the past few years that their dining room has expanded, and what was true a few years ago is probably not true anymore.
Well, and you mentioned earlier about the cronut craze or fad. I would call that more of a craze or fad than a trend, but that happens more and more now, and it happens in the food space thanks to, again, social media like TikTok. Something blows up on TikTok, all of a sudden a certain type of cuisine is popular for a couple of weeks. There's big lineups. Whether an individual restaurateur caused that or not locally, it can blow up, and then it's gone in a couple of weeks. And it's true what you say about restaurants knowing their customers anymore. They don't know their customers because those customers aren't talking to the restaurants necessarily, but they're talking about the restaurant to all their friends and to their social networks on these platforms. And that's how the word is spreading. So really technology feeds into a lot of this. Again, bringing in the younger consumer, who also tends to be a little bit, our data shows, again, our Crest data shows that they tend to be a little bit less loyal. They're more exploratory. They do want to chase the latest trend, the latest fad. They want to be somewhere because they want to be there. And they're going to try the food while they're there, of course.
And it is the nature of like guest or guest acquisition right now is that there's these third-party ordering platforms that give them the ability to jump on. They might have jumped on to order their favorite, but very quickly there's so many alternatives available that they get, maybe one of them's rocking a craze right now and they just order there instead. So it's even more important for restaurants to not only understand their guests and their customers, but once you've actually interacted with that person, you need to find a way to get them on your platform. It's maybe in your restaurant, in your programs, because otherwise they're hopping right back on that third party and they might find another restaurant that's, around.
That's exactly it. Yep.
Yeah. So I think a big topic, especially right now in Canada, is the idea around sustainability, sustainable packaging, and really trying to control costs. So maybe you can talk to some of the innovative ways that restaurateurs can reduce this environmental impact while still maintaining the level of quality and service that you're used to.
Sure. Sustainability, you're right, is a big topic, and all the restaurant brands and all of their suppliers in the supplier base that we see here on the show floor today, it's top of mind for everybody. Mm-hmm. And, everybody wants to do the right thing for the environment, for the planet, for society in general. One of the challenges facing the restaurant industry right now, and thus the sustainability movement, is that it can get expensive. It's difficult. For the small restaurateur who is struggling with rising labor costs, labor shortages, rising food costs, for them to also now focus on the environment, it's tough for them when they're just trying to survive. And from the consumer standpoint, well, the consumer is all about sustainability as well. Nobody says, oh, no, I want to destroy the planet. Yeah. Everybody wants to do their part, but it's costing money. Yeah. And it's hard for the restaurants to pass on those costs to the consumers because consumers aren't necessarily willing to pay either. A lot of restaurant decision making is based on price and based on convenience. So it's difficult for the restaurateur to do the right thing, perhaps, if I can say that. So what can they do? Well, one of the things they can do is pick partners who are in that sustainability realm and who are able to come up with changes. Again, you look around the show floor and you've got these major national and international companies, and they have green footprints, and they have carbon neutral footprints, and they are using sustainable marketing practices. And so as an end user, the restaurateur, if they partner with these companies that are big enough to have these sustainability platforms, then they, by association, will also be doing the right thing and will be helping to support the very good causes of sustainability. However, you may choose to define that, just like you said off the top.
Yeah, and if you look around the show, as you said, there are more choices than ever for straws, for packaging, for you name it. Like there are some incredible companies that have just, this is what we do. And I've seen like the paper straw reinvented. I've seen, and you even want to talk about like automation. I saw like a coffee bot. I've seen like this automatic, like a walk bot or something. Like, so you can integrate a lot of these different tools in, which, by the way, have so much data that you can analyze. And even we talked about pre-screening with like a set of questions. Well, there might be parts of your menu that are easy to just say like grab and go items, or you could automate a lot of those. And there's really cool data. But I think the most important piece is that there's so many good companies out there competing in this space. And because now there's been like, government, policies, it's getting more support than ever from the big guys, as you said. So
it definitely is. And you brought up another area there, Chris, as well, and that is about the menu. A little bit of menu rationalization can go a long way. It'll help the operator to save money, and in these economic times, that's important. But it also helps to reduce food waste.
Yep.
Smaller menus, more efficient menus means less waste at the end of the day. That means, just less waste. So, the issue of food insecurity is a big one. And now, does a restaurant having less waste help with food insecurity? Maybe not entirely, but it at least means you're not wasting food.
Yep.
And sometimes there are ways. Again, they're on the show floor here, and oh my goodness, I forgot their name right now. But there's a group that will take leftover restaurant meals at the end of the day that are completely fine, completely consumable, and they will take those and put them into the system and help out people with food insecurity. So there are ways to give back as well and reduce your own carbon footprint in one way or another. Even as a small operator, it's easy to get involved on some small levels, right?
Well, and I think every operator would love to do that, and it's very low effort. And I think right now, the risk is always like, but what if something happens with that food and I'm not paying attention because I just load into someone's car at the end of the day and then something bad happens. So now there's programs like this, and you're getting more support and more federal funding. So I mean, some of the good topics here, or just to highlight this, is like when it comes to sustainability, look for those big partners that have that green footprint, because they've been doing this for a while now, and now they have more support than ever. You can look at your menu, you can look at your processes. With us, with mobile ordering, what we like to do is find that balance between how do you serve customers that want to use online ordering and interact with your brands, but how do you balance that with serving the people that are in the restaurant? And one of the suggestions that we make is that you know your menu, you know the items that are the easiest to make, that are the most profitable, that that won't really slow your kitchen down. So you can set up a menu that activates, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday night when you're super busy. So if you can still serve those customers that want to do online ordering, but you're not going to slow your kitchen down. So finding these different ways to find that balance, which I guarantee there's lots of great consumer data around ordering out trends and the type of food people want to order that they can come and talk to you guys about.
There you go. And I'll throw a data point out at you, Chris.
Yeah.
2/3 of all restaurant meal occasions take place off premises. So as much as we'd like to think we're as sustainable as we can be, the fact of the matter is just about 2/3 of meals are being consumed out of single-use containers.
Yeah.
And so it's the industry's responsibility to reduce their carbon footprint by being as sustainable as they can. And like you said, there's lots of suppliers on the show floor that can really help with that. Whether it's been legislated, which it just was recently, or whether it's just the right thing to do. And some of those changes are easier to make than others.
I'm just thinking about the idea of like, you go to Tim Hortons, right, and you bring your own coffee mug. So it's like, at what point will somebody actually bring some Tupperware or bring like their stuff to the restaurant for their takeout meal? I don't know if you get the presentation you want yet, but there could be some standardization of packaging that happens over time where, you all have those green bins with the black handles that you bring to grocery stores, right?
Yes.
Maybe that might be a trend in the future. We'll see.
There you go. We'll see. I'll watch for it.
Yeah, you'll know first.
Okay.
So I think another big topic is really around like the health and wellness around like choices. Like we were talking to Beyond Meat earlier today about some plant-based choices. There's so much, but like maybe you can talk about how the industry can find this balance where you have so many different preferences and so many different, like whether it's health or taste. So how do you balance this with like still delivering an enjoyable experience?
That great question. And so I'm assuming you're not suggesting that just because something is healthy doesn't mean it's not indulgent.
Right.
Because those two can go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
So healthy is a difficult one. It's a big topic. It is always top of mind for the industry and for consumers in general. Healthy eating, it's always a topic of discussion.
Yeah.
The challenge is define healthy. And I'm not asking you to do that for me because you'll struggle as much as I would.
Absolutely.
It's difficult to define because everybody has their own concept, their own perception of what is healthy. To one consumer, it might mean eating sustainable, eating organic, eating vegetarian. But to maybe older consumers, it's low fat, low sugar, low salt. And all of these things are healthy, but they're all different.
Yeah.
And there's no way that an operator can check all those boxes. So it's interesting. Again, I'll go back to one of my earlier comments, Chris, where it's up to the operator, the restaurateur, to know their customer base.
Yep.
What are they looking for? What do they think they can get away with? And what should they be serving to make their customers happy? So if they're got a very young clientele, maybe they want to go with high protein and vegetarian items on their menu. Things that are easy to implement, using the items in their kitchen already, easy to assemble. Again, going back to that food waste, if we can control that food waste, then that's a win-win situation as well. And
I think what you see as that trend is we've now gone from the autoplay this and you're automatically opting into everything to now we have the choice of opting in or not. So what restaurants can do is they can present the nutritional values, because a lot of stuff is presented in an online or digital format where people want to know that piece. So sometimes it's not even about, you don't have to define healthy, you just have to give them the information so they can opt in or not. So if that's their version of healthy, great. If not, well, go to the next item or look for something else, but at least they know. And they want to know now. People want that information rather than just a short description.
That's right. Well, and it's interesting you say that because, again, our data shows that only about 5% of consumers or restaurant visitors will choose their destination based on the availability of healthy options. But once they get there, they will often choose something healthier off the menu.
Interesting.
Based on whatever definition they have of healthy.
Yeah.
So there is that opportunity to serve people who think, maybe I'll skip the fries and get the salad today, or maybe I'll get the diet soda instead of the regular soda, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So if the restaurateur can offer some of these healthier items, which again are easy for them to implement if it's just a sidebar for them, they can attract some of these healthier focused consumers to come in and frequent their restaurant. The other thing I'll bring up too is that 5%, like I said, of restaurant visits are based on healthy occasions, but a rising percentage are based on indulgence. So I'm going to go back to that first question. You said about why do we go out to restaurants? It's often to treat ourselves. We're looking for that food experience. We're looking for something we can't or won't get at home, and we're going to treat ourselves because we're typically only going out on average a couple times a week, if that. And so we are going to treat ourselves. We'll eat healthy the other 80% of the time when we're at home. So we are going to indulge. We're going to have that dessert that we wouldn't serve ourselves at home. Or we'll have that big greasy burger or whatever the case may be. And we're going to enjoy ourselves when we go out because that's what the restaurant occasion is all about. That indulgence and that treating myself.
Right, and I think it's true to say that it's easy for you to prepare like a healthy snack or a healthy meal at home when you're like, oh, I'm just going to cut up some veggies or I'm going to prepare something where you know what's in it versus, going out where you're not really sure because it's not always presented. But again, we're also coming out of the we've been at home, eating at home probably more often than not in the past couple of years. So yes, we want to get out and we want to try something different because, my special is no longer that special when I've been cooking it so much,
Exactly. You just made me think of something else with that comment, Chris. we have all been cooped up for way too long over the last 3 years. And our studies during the pandemic indicated that the number one thing that people missed about eating in restaurants during the lockdowns was socializing, being out with family and friends and just enjoying each other's company in a restaurant. Sure, the food is important. It was number 3 after friends and family. And so now that we can do that, again, we're going out, like I said, for these reasons of socializing, for treating ourselves. And how important is that to our mental health?
Oh my gosh.
And how important mental health is right now. So restaurants serve that awesome role in the community of just being a gathering place for consumers and for people to get together.
Yep.
We're all living at home. Younger generations are staying at home longer and longer, living with their parents still. So they need that place to get out, just to share and be with friends and to experience life. And so restaurants fulfill that and help with their mental health in that way too.
Well, and something that was brought up on our last show around that idea was that like people are going out less than ever. They're starting to go out more now, but it's still less than ever. So the fact that they're going out less than ever means that their expectations are also higher than ever, because instead of going out, a few times a month, you're like, hey, once every month or two are going out, and it's like super special because it's your chance to socialize. So
yes,
it's interesting, like to see. So it's even more important than restaurants. You probably have fewer times to interact with people. So really understanding your customer, you don't get as many shots that kicks at the can, if you will, right? So that understanding your customer is more important than ever because you have fewer opportunities with higher expectations.
Excellent. Yep. Good summary.
Interesting. And you talk about socializing, right? It's so great to come out to like Restaurants Canada and actually get out and see people again. And we were talking earlier today, and it's funny because like some of the best insights about the industry, it's not happening like at a booth or what's in the booth sometimes is available online. It's the conversations in the aisles, right? It's the conversations between restaurateurs getting together and they haven't seen each other in a while, and they're talking about stuff they're doing that they might not have online, and then all of a sudden they're saying, hey, we're doing something like that too. So it's another great opportunity and a great event to socialize and generate some ideas.
Oh, I totally agree. I know I've been on Jay's show a few times and attending a lot of other conferences over the years, these virtual conferences. But really what you miss from these in-person occasions is exactly that, the impromptu discussions like you and I had before we got on the air here and like Jay and I had, which you miss unless you are actually in that physical space.
Yep. And right now there's like, people have been cooped up. They're finding ways to interact online and socialize online and whatnot. So there are even fewer opportunities to go out and socialize where you're, just meeting up in the park and whatnot. So restaurants are that place right now.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Very cool. So what would you say then? We're talking about like creating the menus. We're talking about AI. I don't know if you've seen on the previous show, we talked about interviewing ChatGPT, but we were able to we created a menu for a restaurant that didn't exist. That was just like, Jay's Restaurant. And we were talking about in Alberta. So it was like create a menu for Jay's Restaurant. And it was like locally sourced bison. And it was just talking about all these trends that are local, right? So have you played around with the AI as far as being able to generate a lot of that, like, generate like the local menus, or for example, if they want to pull something from international, the ability to say like, hey, how would you describe this Thai dish that I don't really know very well? Have you guys played around too much with that?
We haven't, but me personally, I know one of the first times I got on to ChatGPT. Hope I got that acronym.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, I asked it to tell me what are the hottest trends in Canadian food service right now.
Yeah.
And it gave me some of the top trends. In fact, it sounded an awful lot like me because I do write a lot of articles for the industry and appear in media. I think it was quoting me back to me, but it was very interesting. And you're right. It's only as good as what it finds on the web.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, and I have heard about these menus. So I'm looking forward to Jay posting his menu, his AI generated menu. Yeah. Like we said off the top, I think you're going to find restaurants doing that from a novelty factor, but just also from we talked about the latest trends and fads. Well, these web scraping bots, this AI will find that for a restaurateur, and they don't necessarily have to wait for the latest macro trends data to come out from a supplier like Circana and our Crest data. They can find out what's trending right this moment with tools like this,
which can be important with like, for example, my sister works in long-term care, and so she's constantly trying to prepare like an Easter special, and she has to write a menu for it. And she's like, "What's a cool trend?" I got online, I opened up ChatGPT and I said, let me write your Easter specials for you. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, cool, like let's just try it out. And then it suggested, she's like, man, I didn't even think about trying that dish, but like, yeah, we could totally do that. And then it's not going to do everything for you, but it can get you 80% of the way there. And for people that have to create new menus all the time, especially in something like, you know, any restaurant or like long-term care, you name it, it gives you that massive head start. It might pull one of those like those, you know, new trends that you never thought about, but you probably have the ability to serve. And she's able to spend more time on the hospitality aspect, on talking to her. She talks to her, you know, consumers all the time, which are the people that live in the home. And she can do that now because she's not in her back office, like manually typing out all these things that ChatGPT does in, you know, 30 seconds.
Exactly. And she doesn't have a chef on staff. It doesn't sound like she is a chef. She's an experienced food service and hospitality person, but she's not a chef.
Yep.
So now she has a virtual chef on hand. So again, it goes back to that operational efficiency, filling in the gaps where they wouldn't otherwise be able to have this sort of support because they can't afford it, because they're too small, or they just don't have those resources.
Yeah.
And it helps out with the shortages, because there is a shortage of chefs and experienced kitchen people out there. So all of this can help them to bridge those gaps, while at the same time enhancing their experience, because now, like you said, she can spend more time with her customers out on the floor.
Yeah, and that's it, right? Like everybody now has a marketing team, a social media team, like, you know, this research team to get them started and to get them onto trends that might be that, you know, it may not be obvious initially, but just getting this initial data, then you can then say, oh, maybe I am going to spend more time looking at this specific cuisine, or this is an interesting trend. Maybe this is something I can adopt. And you can figure that out in 30 seconds versus spending like, I mean, I can only imagine how much time your people put into doing all this data and collection and research that like, which is what they would go to as, say, like a secondary source. I'm like, hey, this is an interesting trend. Now I want to dive deeper, but AI can help you find that trend.
AI can help you find those trends. Yes, absolutely.
Very cool. Very cool. Let me just check in with Jay here. I don't know how much more time that you have, but this has been a great discussion so far.
It has. I've been enjoying this.
Is there any other topics that have been, that have popped up that you maybe wanted to touch on that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, I know you're in the digital space. Now, I can tell you digital ordering, again, is still booming in food service, just as it is in any retail channel.
Yep.
What's going on with digital and digital ordering and apps, whether it's a third-party app or a branded app. What are you seeing new that's in that space? Because consumers are loving these apps, and the brands seemingly are too, because they just keep evolving and keep changing, and are really grasping this new technology and using it to interact with their guests.
Yeah. Well, I think where we are now is, you know, the pandemic happened, it accelerated digital adoption. Yes. And everybody it wasn't necessarily about being efficient. It was about keeping your doors open. It was about following the rules and just trying to keep serving as many people as you could. I feel that we've now gotten past that hump of like, okay, now we know this is kind of what the world looks like now. And these tools, now it's about being efficient. Now it's about looking at everything that you've been using for the past few years and then trying to get really efficient with it. And you can only really do that if you actually do understand your customers and you do have the data. So I think one of the trends is restaurants getting more efficient with these new tools, but they need to take the time to actually look at the data, and they need to understand what are the tools and why are these tools working, because what works for one person with a platform may not work for another. So that's kind of what I've been seeing and what I'm thinking, because we even have great like third-party apps, which are great for acquiring new guests, but people love to complain about, you know, oh, but the fees are too high. This is crazy. How can they charge this? And it's like, look, they're bringing in new customers to your restaurant. Now it's up to you to convert those from a third-party platform to a first-party platform and start to own that customer, own that data, and own that experience. But you're paying that extra fee because they're doing that work right now. So I think one of the trends I would love to see is, especially smaller chains or smaller restaurants, have the ability to bridge that gap to get people from acquiring new guests and to their own kind of first party, whether it's ordering, loyalty programs, guest feedback, reservations. Like, I think restaurants, that's where I see there being an opportunity for them to really invest in that area. It's so hard for, you know, a single restaurant owner who is an incredible chef, great with people, but has no idea how to use social media, or has no idea how to bridge that. And frankly, if they're able to convert those customers, well, they can keep their same investment on those third-party platforms and keep bringing in new customers. And I think that's awesome. But I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen. Is how do we become more efficient? because costs are so high right now that
Mm-hmm.
people won't be able to keep their doors open and use all these tools and and
Exactly. And that's, I think, we keep coming back to that. Digital, it's a tool. It's not going to take away all our jobs. It's not going to change the industry forever, but it is causing this transformation in the industry, which
Yep.
is different. The way brands interact with consumers and consumers interact with brands is just all different now. And you're right, it was this accelerated change. It was coming anyway.
yeah.
It was coming anyway.
Just accelerated it, and it comes down to like understanding these tools. I think that now that I don't even think the people creating these solutions understood the tools initially when they were pushing them out, because nobody really knew how to interact with somebody. When if you take online ordering, for example, and then you put it into a physical space, there's a lot of stuff there that that's where we kind of had to learn a lot, But now I think the industry is starting to learn, and this is the new reality, and people can safely adopt these tools now.
Agreed.
So it's very exciting.
It is.
What was the other piece? I had some idea that came to me on the same topic, but it's gone now. Must have been good.
There you go.
Yeah. Anything else that you've seen around the show, or anything else you're going to go check out? The types of any types of exhibitors that that are kind of hot on your trend list?
Well, I do like to look around the show and get a sense for what some of those trends are. I am seeing a lot of global cuisine here on the show floor, and that's always exciting to try out new and different things. I always love to visit the dessert booths. So a little bit of indulgence when you come to a food show versus some other shows. Would like to try those out. Always fascinating. So the number one product served in Canadian restaurants, you can probably tell me.
Oh, number one product served in Canadian restaurants.
Yes, exactly. Number one menu item, it's coffee.
Okay, coffee. I was like, we're talking food. Yeah, coffee.
Exactly. And you look around the show, there is just so much innovation taking place, even in such a mature area of the market.
Yeah.
Canadians love their coffee. They love their breakfast. And it's not all about the brewed coffee anymore. It's about the specialty coffees, the cold coffees,
the cold,
the nitro coffee, and then all the new coffee equipment. The old.
I just saw the Botrista. It's like the automated, barista bot.
Oh, I missed that one.
You'll see them on that side of the show.
I will go check that out. Thanks, Chris.
I did remember what I was going to say, and it was the same topic that we've been on around this idea of automation. It's like it's so hard for restaurants to be efficient, but when you use AI tools or you use these platforms, it's going to save you so much time. And if you're not doing this now, like I think these automation tools can't do everything for you, but if you're not using them to take care of that 80%, because we're not even the AI now, it's not waving a magical wand. It's like you still need to get out what you put into it, or you get out what you put in. But it's so efficient that if you're not getting that initial boost of efficiency, it's hard to do everything. So I think that's the most important thing people to look at is how do I save time by being more efficient? Because most of these tools are just taking a manual process and condensing it because it's automated. But you still need to understand what it's doing. But I don't think you can function right now without adopting some of those technologies.
You're not going to have a long-term survival rate there. Yes, because it is changing and it is becoming the norm. And these operators are just going to have to adopt technology on some level.
All right. Perfect. Well, thank you again for coming onto the show. This was a fantastic discussion. I learned a lot. I can be a little bit more, educated in my conversations where I actually have some of the data points now. But if anybody's looking to learn more, they can go to Circana. There's a website.
Circana, our website. Yep, absolutely.
Circana.com.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you again. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a good day.
Thanks for having me, Chris and Jay.
Awesome.